Happy New Year, everybody. This is the first live of 2024. I hope everybody had a fantastic New Year. I had a very uneventful one, but that was by choice. I was a little exhausted from Christmas, and so New Year's, we just took it easy, and I, for one, greatly appreciated it. So I hope you all had a fantastic New Year's. And I'm so happy that you're tuning in. As always, I would love to hear where you're tuning in from. So drop that in the comments. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know if you had a great new year. What are your resolutions for 2024? Each year, I try to do a word of the year for me, at least the first month, anyways. And this year, my word is going to be intentional. So I am trying to be extremely intentional with the people I spend my time with, how I spend my time, the people I choose to have in my circles, and just really trying to buckle down and focus. But today I wanted to go over some of the different things that you're hearing in the news media, because obviously around this time last year, we were hearing that we were going to have a crash. We were hearing that things were just going to start plummeting. We had already seen a rise in interest rates. We had seen a downtick as far as the number of homes that were being sold. So it did kind of lead you to believe, what is 2023 as an entire year going to play out? And all you heard in the media was that things were going to plummet. It was going to be like 2008 all over again. So I want to share one of the articles that I was reading earlier today. And it says, is the housing market going to crash? What the experts are saying. And don't you love these? This actually came out just about a couple of weeks ago. I always love reading what they have to say, because what you hear on the news versus what you hear from, a lot of the economists is usually very different. So looking at this, it says, much to the chagrin of would-be homebuyers, property prices just keep rising. It seems nothing, not even the highest mortgage rates in nearly 23 years, can stop the continued climb of home prices. So much for the idea that a housing recession would reverse some of the outsized price gains in homes. The U.S. housing market had finally started slowing in late 2022, and home prices seemed poised for a correction, but a strange thing happened on the way to the housing market crash. Home values started rising again. So Lawrence Yun here, who is the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, says that the housing recession is essentially over. Now, do we really believe that 100%? Because obviously, at the beginning of the year last year, they were all telling us it's all doom and gloom. I think a lot of them were kind of anticipating that with the rates increasing, inventory decreasing, that we were going to see a horrible 2023 in the form of the housing market, and that just didn't happen. So while they say here that home prices continue to rise, I think that it's very important that we look at things and we understand that while home prices continue to rise, they did not continue to rise like we had seen them for the last couple of years. So in 2020, when kind of the floodgates opened again, when they lifted the ban of staying in place, everybody started going out, making a move. If you were thinking about buying a house, you jumped on it. Interest rates were really low. There were a lot of people that were in places of the country that it was still shut down. And here in Georgia, we were open fairly quickly. And so a lot of people were making a move to the South just to get things going, get kids back in school, get a little bit of normalcy. And so while all of that was going on, it was a mad dash. And we saw it, home prices rising at astronomical levels of 15% and even higher. That's not normal, and that's not sustainable. So while this article sits and talks about home prices continuing to rise, last year we rose at a much more reasonable rate compared to the last couple of years. And so I think it's important to point out what rising actually looks like. It says NAR data shows that median sales price of existing homes are near record highs. October 23 median of $391,800 is off the all-time high of $413,800. So realistically, that looks like we came down a little bit, they're trying to blame it on seasonal fluctuation, which obviously, yes, we do have in the wintertime. We don't see as many homes sold as you're going to see during the spring and the summer months. However, that's still a reduction in price. So in my opinion, and what I've been seeing, this is looking like we're having more of a normal stabilized market compared to what we were seeing the last couple of years. So it says here, you're not going to see house prices decline. There's just not enough inventory. Skylar Olson, chief economist at Zillow, agrees about the supply and demand imbalance. So again, it's going back to what we've been talking about for quite a while now. We're not in that space where things are suddenly going to be more affordable. So we've been talking on the live for quite a few months now that the problem and why we're not seeing home prices coming down is really, it goes back to the fact that we don't have enough houses. We still have buyers that are in the market. These interest rates, a lot of people thought, oh, everybody will just walk away. And that's just not the case, because no matter the interest rate, you have to remember in the 70s, in the 80s, and well into the 90s, interest rates were at double digits. Homes still sold. People still listed their homes for sale, and people still purchased those homes. It wasn't like for 27 years, because from 1971 until into the 90s, we saw large interest rates, double digits, and people still bought and sold real estate. So it's not that interest rates are just going to put a pause on the market altogether. Life is going to continue to go on. People are going to get married. People are going to get a divorce. People are going to have a job relocation. People are going to have a spouse that passes away, or kids that go off to college, or wanting to downsize. Things are going to happen in life that are going to force the hand and make you make these decisions. So with that being said, looking at things here, let's see if I can get this back up. There we go. So looking at this here, it says, is the housing market going to crash? Bottom line, no. There's just generally not enough supply. This is from Mark Fleming, chief economist at title insurer First American Financial. There are more people than housing inventory. It's Econ 101. Dave Liniger, the founder of real estate brokerage Remax, says the sharp rise in mortgage rates has skewed the market. But if mortgage rates do decline, the new buyers could flood into the market, pushing up home prices. Now, this is something I want everybody to be very careful with, because you're seeing a lot of this right now. And I feel like it's the fear-monger mentality, where they're just pushing things, they're pushing their agenda. And obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish that I did. But I feel like you're going to see this just like at the beginning of 2023, you saw we're going to go into a crash. Home prices are going to plummet. Now is a horrible time to purchase because you're going to lose your butts, right? And now they're talking about interest rates are plummeting. You should run out and buy a house right now. Otherwise, it's going to be 2020 and 2021 all over again, and you're going to have so much competition. And while I think there is some truth in that, I don't think that it is a wise move for people to go out and flood the market, because we, as the consumers, and I say this, obviously, yes, I'm in real estate. I'm a real estate agent, and I want a good, stable market. I don't want what happened the last couple of years, and I don't want 2008 all over again. I worked in real estate in 2008, and it was not pretty. So if so many people rush out and start buying and start just kind of jumping on that bandwagon because you hear these articles stating this, then it's going to just create the same issue that we had in 2020. And you're going to start driving home prices higher again. You're going to start waiving those contingencies again. So make sure that you are pausing and really thinking about, is this what I want, or am I reacting? Because you should not be reacting to the market when you just hear something like this. If purchasing a home or selling your home was already in your mindset and was on your 2024 Outcast goals, then by all means, look at it and make it happen. But make sure that it's something that you've educated yourself on, you've discussed, and that it is something that you're wanting to do for yourself. You're not just reacting to what's going on in the market, because that's when we don't make smart decisions. And a lot of times that's when we have a lot of regret, and we don't want that. So you've got an entire generation of pent up demand. We're in this fascinating position of tremendous demand and too little inventory. When interest rates do start to come down, it'll be another boom and bust cycle. So back in 2005 to 2007, the US housing market looked downright frothy before home values crashed with disastrous consequences. When the real estate bubble burst, the global economy plunged into the deepest downturn since the Great Depression. Bankrate's most recent expert survey puts the odds at 46%. Buyers and homeowners are asking, when will the housing market crash? Well, the interesting part of this is in 2005, 6, 7, we had home builders that were building houses faster than people could purchase them. And that's where a lot of the issue came up. And a lot of the housing that went into foreclosure were builder homes. They were building standing inventory. So they had empty homes that were just sitting, and they were waiting and banking on people to come and purchase these homes. And when it didn't happen, they lost their butts. I worked for a home builder at that time. I can tell you, they no longer are a home builder because they went under in 2009 when all of this started to come crashing down. So the issue is home builders. I guess it's not an issue. It's a great thing. Home builders learn their lesson for the most part. I will not say that they learned it 100%, because obviously money drives people, greed drives people. But I will say that home builders did learn from 2008, and they're not building standing inventory like they were in 2005 to 2007. So if you want a new construction home now, they may have 1 or 2 homes that are in the process of being built. However, there is not just a number of homes lining the streets for you to go and walk through and tour and then possibly purchase and be in 30 days or less. That's just not how it's working with builders these days. You're looking at least 3 to 6 months before you're able to get into something. So unless you're getting, possibly, let's say that Joe went and put a home under contract with a builder, it's in the process of being built, he ends up losing his job, and so that he has to cancel the contract, and now that home comes available. Well, that could be one of the standing inventory options, and that's how builders do sometimes have standing inventory. So it's not something that they never have. It's just not as common, and it's not going to be as robust as we saw in the 2005 to 2007 timeframe. So looking at existing home prices, economists have long predicted that the housing market would eventually cool as home values become a victim of their own success. So you can kind of look, this is from March of 2020 to November of 2023. So we mostly, where you see these little dips here, this is where we were seeing March, because this is kind of when COVID happened, everything paused, and then we just went on a skyrocket. Then here you have the seasonality, right? We've got December, January. So we still saw a little bit of seasonality, but then 2021, it just took off. And then again, we started to come down, seasonality. Then we went back up in 2022. Middle of 2022 is when things just came back down, because that's when we started to see those interest rates rising. People got scared. We started hearing the doom and gloom, but then we went back up. And in June of 2023, we were basically almost at the same place that we were in June of 2022. So we have come down a little bit since then, but not significantly. So what does that look like? Experts say prices are going to hold strong. While the housing market is indeed cooling, this slowdown doesn't look like most real estate downturns. We will not have a repeat of the 2008 to 2012 housing market crash. So it says there's 5 reasons that we're not going to see a crash. So let's take a look at these. Inventories are still very low. That's one of the biggest, if not the biggest factor in why home prices aren't coming down. Then number 2, builders didn't build quickly enough to meet demand. We just talked about that. Number 3, demographic trends are creating new buyers. There's strong demand for homes on many fronts. Many Americans who already own homes decided during the pandemic that they needed bigger places. Then Number 4, lending standards remain strict. In 2007, liar loans, that was something where they would do loans in 2007 that were basically based off of cash. So that's when you literally had people bringing $300,000 to the table. Nobody verified where that money came from, and that's not a good way to do business. So ever since 2008, the lender laws have been extremely strict. And that's where a couple of you had asked earlier this year when you started hearing about some of the different loans that were coming out that were different from just your FHA or your conventional. A lot of people were getting nervous and were like, great, here we go again. We're going to be 2008 all over again. But because of the lending laws that are so strict, it's very, very different than it was previously. So a lot of these loans that are out there are really good products for you to take a look at. That's the word I was trying to think of a minute ago, products. Thank you. So that being said, you still at the end of the day need to make sure that this is something that you're choosing to do and that you've educated yourself on, because it's not just about making the home purchase itself. It's about what comes after that, making sure that you're making that mortgage payment. You'll have taxes that you're paying for in that mortgage payment. You'll have insurance that you're paying for. You're going to have other things that come up. You have the bills that are associated with it. If your AC goes out. So these are all things that you just really need to think through before you're making a jump, and just don't react to the market. So let's take a look. I remember those days. There were neighborhoods built with empty homes. Yes. And back in the day, it was something that a lot of us were just kind of used to. So I was licensed in 2005, and then I went to work directly as soon as I got my license, I went directly to work for a builder. I was a new home sales, right there in the model homes. And we had a number of homes that we would walk people through. I ended up going and working in the design studio, and my job literally was to build these homes with the builders. I would choose the design options, and the builders would build them. And so I remember those days very, very well. It was just very common to be able to go in and say, okay, well, I need a home in 30 days, or I need a home in 45 days. And that's how you chose the home that you were buying, was based off of your time that you needed. However, nowadays, that's just not the way that it is. All right, Miss L, I'm back now. Salio, Georgia. I saw your comments the other day. I'm watching you. So Georgia as a whole, I love. You saw my last video. So, all right, well, let's take a look. I have another article because this one I found really, really interesting. So like I just said, I was in the market in 2008, and I can tell you personally, I was very young at the time. However, I remember vividly, no one saw 2008 coming as far as people in the market. I worked for a builder that had been in business for many, many decades, and there was no chatter about pulling back on things. There was no chatter about, the market downturning in 2006, 2007. It wasn't till everything really started to happen in 2008 that it was kind of like a pause and an oh crap moment. And so that being said, there was only one person that was calling people out. And I remember vividly, and this is what cracks me up, because this lady, Ivy Zellman, she was on a conference call with Bob Toll. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of Toll Brothers. They build beautiful, immaculate homes here in the South and all over. But Bob Toll, she was on a call with him, and he was saying in 2006, 2007, that everything was great. We had seen a little bit of a downturn, but we were going to be going right back, and everything was going to be good. And she said, "Which Kool-Aid are you drinking?" And she's been known for that ever since. They actually, she earned the nickname of Ivy the Killer because of that happening. And so it says here, Ivy Zellman and several colleagues at Credit Suisse have put together a very big and highly detailed equity research called Mortgage Liquidity. So with that being said, she went on to say the overall share of prime conventional loans is tightening liquidity, puts under current builders backlogs at considerable risk. We estimate that there are approximately 565,000 homes in the foreclosure process. In our base case, we assume that 50% of the subprime market is at risk. And she was one of the only ones that was bringing to light that we were heading for something and we were not going to be having a great market like a lot of the people, like Bob Toll was saying. And she stuck to that. And lo and behold, exactly what she said is what played out. And it wasn't till 2008 where a lot of these people had to realize, hey, it's not going well. It is not going to come back. We are headed to a downturn, and we ended up in the Great Recession. So when she speaks, I listen, because obviously a lot of times when you're hearing from the National Association of Realtors, when you're hearing from Zillow, when you're hearing from, the economist at RE/MAX, I hate to say it, but they're all in the real estate world. Now, I will say Lawrence Yun, who's with the National Association of Realtors, I do listen heavily to what he says because he doesn't always just give you what you want to hear as being in the realtor world. He does sometimes give the really hard facts that we need to hear. But a lot of the other ones, it's just hard for me being in this business to rely on, like, you're in the real estate world. Of course you want to say positive things. Of course you want everything to go well. So listening to Ivy is something totally different because she's not in our world as far as what she says is going to benefit her. So let's take a look at what she is saying is going to be coming up for 2024, because that's really what I think a lot of us are riding on, what we want to see. So she's saying, notable for her skepticism regarding the U.S. housing market bubble in 2006, shared her 2024 housing market predictions. Starting with an overview of the 2023 housing market, she attributed the rise in home prices, despite initial expectations of a downturn, to the resilience of the U.S. economy. Now, more than a year ago, a soft landing seems the most likely scenario. So what can we really expect for 2024 and 2025? Home values will rise further, but at a more modest level. I feel like this is going to be similar to what we saw in 2023. Home prices will increase by 1.5% in 2024 and an additional 2% in 2025. So that is a much more modest level than we have seen over the past couple of years. Now, you have to keep in mind that she's talking about on a national level. This is going to differ with every state. So in certain places, like I have some realtor friends in Texas, their market has actually gone backwards this year. They've had some reductions, quite a few reductions. That's not to say that Georgia hasn't seen any reductions. We have. But we have not seen the significant amount of reductions that they were seeing in Texas. So these numbers will fluctuate based on where in the country you're located. So let's take a look. Home sales will increase by 5% in 2024 and by 8% in 2025. So that's the number of sales, not the pricing. Then mortgage rates will decline, with the 30-year fixed falling to 6.4% in 2024 and to 6.1% in 2025. So realistically, we look like we're heading to a little bit more of a balanced market. I am hoping that that will really drive a lot of people to move forward with purchasing a home if it was something that they were thinking about, or putting their home on the market, because realistically, that is kind of what is putting us in a hold. Is there are a lot of people that are not selling their home. They're sitting tight. They're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen, waiting for these interest rates to come down, because one of the articles that I was reading, in 82.4% of current homeowners are locked in at a rate below 5%. 82% of homeowners have a rate that is below 5%. And over 50% of that has a rate below 3% or owns their home outright. So with that, 80% of America has a rate lower than the current interest rates are right now, and lower than interest rates probably are going to be for the next couple of years or more. So realistically, that's where we come into the factor of people are not going to move unless they have a reason to move. I will say that if you're at a 5% rate and you really just want that bigger house or really feel like you want to downsize, especially if you're downsizing, to have that equity that you've built up right now is a big deal. And if interest rates come back down to say 6%, 6.5%, and you really want to make that move, it kind of balances out, because if we're still continuing to look at rising home prices, even if it's at 1.5% this year, 2% next year, that's still 3% equity that you would have gained while you're holding on to only 1% interest rate. And you have to do the math on, if you're in this home for 30 years, yes, that's a significant amount of money that you would have saved by waiting on that interest rate to go down. However, most people do not stay in their home for 30 years. Most people, it used to be, I think, 7 to 8 years, and now they're looking at people are staying in their homes a little bit longer, 10 to 12 years. So even at 10 to 12 years, paying on that interest rate is 1% difference going to be life or death in changing, like, should you have gone ahead and purchased that next home? I see it all the time with people where when they're getting ready to list their home, they do all of the painting and they get the new countertops and they do all of this nice stuff. And then they're like, God, I really wish I would have done this and enjoyed it while I lived here. It's kind of the same thing. If you want to go ahead and enjoy the home and get to the next home, if 1% is the only thing that's standing in your way, make the move. If it financially makes sense to you, make the move. But you have to, again, make sure that it's what is going to make sense to you. That's an interesting prediction on rates. She must believe that inflation is still sticky, but maybe that's more of a conservative outlook. Anthony, I agree with you, but I will say that I think inflation is going to be, this year is going to be an interesting year. We all know that. It is coming off of still the COVID rise in interest rates and home prices. It's an election year. I think we're all interested to see how things are going to play out this year. And anytime it's an election year, we're going to see ups and downs in the market, because like I've said before, and I'll say again, I don't care which side of the coin you're on as far as your beliefs. Everybody wants people to be happy, because if the economy is looking good and the American people are happy, then that side, whatever side you're on, looks good. And so we'll just have to see how things play out. I will say that I wish I had a crystal ball to say how this year is going to play out. I don't. We will continue to go over these lives every Thursday at 7 p.m. so that we can follow how things are looking. Right now, I will say that interest rates have been trending down. We're almost down to 6.5% right now, just depending on where you are with credit and down payment. So if you have any thought of wanting to purchase, your first call should be to a lender. And just looking at that, playing it out. You have no obligation when you're talking to a lender to be purchasing a home. They can talk to you about numbers to see where you're at. And if you don't have a lender, I have a great one that I do trust very, very much. That's the biggest thing when talking to a lender, because this is probably the largest purchase of your life to date, probably your life in general. And you need to be working with a lender that is going to be honest with you and not just sell you on some loan to get you into a house. So if you need direction with that, hit me up and I will connect you with Tyler, who is fantastic. So I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. I will see you next week at 7 o'clock.